Trek Geeks Podcast Network is proud to have Fansets as its presenting sponsor. Fansets is a home for amazing pin collectibles with over 300 officially licensed Star Trek pins and new releases every month.
Stay tuned for a special discount code worth 10% off your next order at fansets.com. Fansets, our pins have character. Aren't we dead? I remember being dead. Tachyons are abundant and threaten the proto-drive, so keep your feet on the deck and join us for our discussion. I'm Mike Bovia, and this is Discovering Trek Prodigy. Thanks for joining us on Discovering Trek, the Star Trek Universe Companion, presented by Fansets. This week on Prodigy, the proto-drive malfunctions and, shall we say, breaks time. The only one that can communicate with the whole crew is Hologram Janeway. Now, because of her love for alternate universes and time travel plots, I'm sure my co-host could communicate with everybody, but if I was in one of those timelines, she would probably skip right past mine. She's my progeny, Emilie, and I know truer words have never been spoken, but I also know that you would love to be part of an alternate timeline or a time travel gig like this one, right?
Definitely, I would.
Yeah.
And you are absolutely right that I would skip your timeline.
And that's what I was gonna say next. So the one thing that you can't skip is telling everyone where they can find us. So why don't you let them know now?
You can follow the show on Twitter at Discovering Trek, and you can find us on Twitter at Trek Legacy and on Instagram with the same handle. You can also find us in Camp Kittimer from time to time. If you'd like to join the conversation there, answer a couple simple questions, and you'll be welcomed in by our admins Haley, Jackie, and Fark. You can subscribe to the podcast by downloading the Trek Geeks mobile app or by searching for us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts.
Thank you, Em. And so one of the things that we always talk about on Discovering Trek Prodigy is how important it is to hear the voices of those that this show Prodigy was really intended for. Now, as we've seen throughout Prodigy so far, adults seem to be just as engaged with the show as the younger folks, but the younger folks are the ones that it was designed for. So our guests today are the hosts of the Murf Turf podcast. We have Jude Allen and his dad, Brent, who is from the Beam Me Up podcast as well. So guys, thank you for joining us here on Discovering Trek Prodigy. How are you?
We're good. How are you?
We're doing great. And it's great to have, like I said, the younger voices contributing, especially for someone like you, Jude, who this is your first dive into the Star Trek universe. So let me say congratulations to you on now having this curse over your head that you'll be watching this for the rest of your life.
Thank you.
So one thing that we've been asking everybody who comes on, so you have your own podcast dedicated to Prodigy. So is it safe to say that the two of you are enjoying this series?
We are. Are
What do
you guys
like?
Enjoying it?
Oh yeah. I'm loving this.
It is fantastic. You mentioned the adults are into it. I would be watching this even without him. I'm just really glad that he gets to watch it with me, because now, as a dad, right? You try to drag your kids into it and get them to watch, and it's like you and I think are about the same age. So it's like us trying to watch the old 60s stuff. We're trying to make the kids watch the old 90s stuff. Now they have their own, and one that's for them, especially because even sometimes the old Star Trek is a little adult on some of its stuff. So, it's so good, but it's just good. It's good TV. It's just good TV.
So Jude, what is your favorite part about Prodigy so far?
I like the animation.
Okay.
I also like how the story is.
Great. Who's your favorite character?
Murf.
Okay.
Who's your favorite character besides Murf? Because Murf is like everybody's favorite character.
Yeah.
Right. So who do you got besides Murf?
That's hard. I don't.
So you like
Rock?
Oh, okay, cool. Rock. I was gonna say, if it's the ensemble, then nothing wrong with that. But yes, you know what? I am gonna agree with you 100% because Rock is my favorite character. I mean, everybody loves Murf. Let's not put that in the rear view. But
Murf.
Rock has been. She's been my favorite almost from the beginning. So
Murf.
So we got Murf and we got Rock. So, but you know what? The two are paired together. So that's perfect. All right. Well, this is a reminder that this episode of Discovering Trek provides spoilers for the Prodigy episode Time Amok. If you have not watched yet, head over to Paramount Plus and watch the episode and head back. Failure to do so leaves you open to spoilers. Episode 8 of Star Trek Prodigy, Time Amok, aired on January 20th, 2022. It was written by Nikhil S. Jayaram and directed by Olga Ulanova and Sung Shin.
The crew is gathered on the holodeck working on a team-building exercise when chaos ensues and leads to Dal telling Janeway that they're not a real crew. In fact, they stole the Protostar. As the crew exits the holodeck in shame, Zero stays behind to explain everything to Janeway. Meanwhile, the Diviner receives a transmission from Nandi about where the Protostar is, and he sets about to hack into its system, creating Drednok 2 to take back the ship. A nearby tachyon storm does damage to the protocore, bending time for each individual member of the crew, except Janeway, who can be in each portion of time. She helps each member develop a way to set things right, until helping Gwen and Drednok 2 delete her program. Gwen shoots Drednok out of an airlock in engineering, but loses the warp matrix at the same time, leaving Rock left to fix everything. She teaches herself everything she needs to know in her slowed down time, gets Janeway back online, and hooks up the warp matrix, setting things back to normal. The whole crew surrounds Rock, hugging her, knowing she saved all their lives, but wondering what the time alone may have done to her.
Very nice. So, as we do on every episode, we want to get everybody's thoughts on, in this case, Time Amok. So, Jude, why don't we start with you? What did you think of this episode on your first watch?
I think it was one of my favorites, and I like how Rock realized that she isn't just a big, scary little girl. She can actually do things and not just be the one in the corner, just watching.
Yeah. I think this was a great story for Rock. Like a coming of age tale. How about you,
Yes.
Brent? What did you enjoy about this?
Yeah, I really like the idea that this episode specifically, actually last week's was as well, but maybe even these past 3 that we've gotten with this new segment, but they're less serialized pieces. Like those first 5 episodes really all felt like one big giant episode. These really feel like more individual. There's a connective tissue that flows through them, but they really are feeling like their own individual episodes. And this was just a great sci-fi show. It was a great episode of sci-fi. We've seen the idea of a crew fractured into different time elements before. I think Voyager itself did an episode like that.
Did.
And so did several other sci-fi shows. So this is their take on it, and they knocked it out of the park. And I heard all before getting into it, like the writers and everybody were like, "You're not ready for this episode. It's going to hit you in the feels." And oh my gosh, were they right? Because I may or may not have choked up a little bit at especially the whole Rock thing. Mostly I think at the end when she figured it out, like, and she's going, I can't. And then like, she's popping Janeway back in. It's been 276 days. I was like, oh no, she did. She's been so long.
Right. Exactly.
But Wait, I thought it was 78 tries to bring Janeway back.
No, she said it was 276 tries. We don't know how long that took. I mean, how many tries was she getting in a day? I assume it was like one a day, but maybe it was more than that.
And that was my assumption too, was, man, that's like 2/3 of a year.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, she's in isolation effectively like that. That's not okay. Like,
no.
I can have all sorts of stuff, but you're right. Coming of age, she grew up, she could have come back as an older Rock and it would have been very well explained. Although I would have missed Riley if she wasn't doing the voice anymore.
Right. Exactly. All right, Ed. So how about you? What were your thoughts on this episode?
Okay. So the one thing that I noticed in the scene with the diviner is that this is, shout out to the art department. No big surprise there. But I noticed that the little tubes that are on the diviner's armor.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that those had like liquid and it was actually moving, like it was flowing through the tubes, and I thought that was so cool. And so I wonder if that's like the way that keeps him alive, because what I've been thinking is it's kind of like a Darth Vader situation with him, where he has to stay inside of the tank unless he's in his armor, because otherwise he'll die. So maybe in those tubes are liquid that's like flowing into his veins or into his body somehow, that's keeping him stable so that he can be outside of the tank and still function.
Space dialysis.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Hey, there you go. Yeah.
So that's one thing that I noticed. I also thought it was really cool how he built a Drednok out of a vehicle replicator. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, that was interesting.
And isn't that also scary? Like he just sent the program. Like he can't get there, but I'm going to send the program and have it built over there. Like, that's scary.
Yeah.
And the last thing is that I really liked Rock's expressions in this, like the facial movement. I thought they nailed that. So that's really cool.
That's something we've talked about before, is that, if you're watching a live action episode, the actors have that ability to emote through their looks versus just having to rely on their words. And you can't do that in animation. The animators have to put that through the animation, and then it has to come through the actor's voice. So that was really cool. I enjoyed that as well. I'll say, when I first heard the captain's log at the beginning, or not the captain's log, but the star date, I was confused, and it was actually explained online, as Aaron Waltke does every week, puts out some tweets to help explain the episode. And he said that it was an incorrect star date because the tachyon storm was already affecting Protostar systems. So Janeway was saying the wrong star date due to that.
What was wrong with the star date? I missed that altogether.
So it was like, it started with a 6, and I hadn't heard a star date that was starting with a 6, because this is supposed to be, if I remember correctly, it's like 3 years after what's going on in Lower Decks. And so really? I think, I want to say somebody out there said that it should be like 4-9, start with a 4-9, and she started with a 6. So someone was like, this should, if that's the case, then, this is a lot further in the future than we thought. I'm not good with the star dates. Just hearing that 6 at the beginning, I was like, that sounds a little off, but what do I know? And then I saw people talking about it online, and Aaron explained it. So that was good to know. I like that on the holodeck, Dal said that, he kind of talks about how he's learned from his experience in Kobayashi, that he needs to listen to his crew. But then he says, when they say stuff like that, I have to ignore them. So, and I liked the Janeway facepalm when she saw that the one that she was working with in one of those timelines was Murf, because what was she gonna get Murf to do? Murf has no hands. He couldn't build the warp matrix for her. So
She was so mean, like oh, Murf.
So was there anything that the two of you found that you didn't like about this episode? Because we do ask for, any drawbacks that you found from it as well.
I have one, but Jude, did you have something? I'm happy to let you go first.
Go first.
Okay. This isn't as much. This is a critique, but it's I understand.
Mm-hmm.
The animation for Janeway, because she was so heavily featured in this episode, like she was front and center more so than I think she's been in any other episode. I really felt like I was watching a cartoon, and it felt out of sync with the rest of it. Now I'm going to give that a little asterisk because she's the only human. And I know that humans are the toughest thing to animate. Like everybody else, their shapes can be whatever shape, the proportions can be whatever, the coloring can be whatever, but there's Janeway. And not only is it Janeway as a human, this is Janeway that for us old Trekkies anyway, we know what she's supposed to look like.
Yeah.
We know where she's supposed to be. And that's really, really, really hard for animators to pull that off and make that as convincing. And it really just felt like that looks very animated to me. It doesn't look real like the rest of it does. It just felt out of sync to me. But again, asterisk, I understand why. Yeah. And it's completely forgivable.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
But that was a critique.
Understandable. Yeah.
I agree with that.
And that said, Hageman Brothers or whomever is in charge of writing paychecks, you should give the animators for Janeway a raise because that's a hard job you gave them. Harder than everybody else.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, until we get Chakotay and his crew on board, which I'm guessing isn't going to be until we hit episode 11 at this point.
I was going to say, it might be next season before we get to that stuff.
Oh.
Yeah. Or season 1.3.
Yeah.
1.3. What?
Yeah.
Library computer. Data being received.
So one of the things that happens in all Star Treks at this point, because we've got so much back history, we tend to see little things that come back from previous incarnations of Star Trek. So we're going to take a minute here and go through any callbacks that we found in this episode from previous Trek. So Brent and Jude, did you pull anything away from previous Star Trek in this episode?
Jude might not have. He's not as versed in other Trek. This is his kind of first entry point, but I'm curious if he did.
There was other, there was more ships. Like they were all in like different timelines. Like the one from Voyager.
Oh, yeah. On the little diagram there where they were going around.
I think so, yeah.
Yep. I know what you're talking about.
And like their ship would be like kind of inside of theirs. But like in different timelines.
Yep. Very nice. I know exactly what you're talking about because I've got that on my list.
I'm glad you do because I'm not actually sure which one he's talking about, but I'm glad you do. So that's cool.
Well, I know M doesn't have anything, so I believe he's referring to the episode Shattered, where well, and actually there was another one. I want to say it was in season 2, where there were the two ships that were like right on top of each other.
Oh, that was the one where Harry Kim and Naomi, the baby Wildman, like that whole thing happened. Yeah. I can't remember the name of it because I didn't write that one down, but as I was thinking of it, it popped up.
One where Harry Kim dies again.
Yes.
Well,
the first time Harry died,
and then he lived.
Yeah, and then came
Harry
back to life,
and then everybody else died, but Harry lived.
Yeah,
he died, and then he lived, and then he died many more times.
Yeah,
it's messy.
That'd be a fun, like doing a rewatch of Voyager. Just keep track of how many times Harry Kim dies. How many times do they kill him?
What? Who's Harry Kim?
He's a character on Voyager.
I know there's a lot of people out there that are hoping to see a promoted Harry Kim at some point in Prodigy.
Who's Harry Kim?
He's a character from Voyager that was on Janeway's ship. And the joke about Harry Kim was he was an ensign, which is the lowest level officer that you can be. And throughout the entire time of Voyager, he never got a promotion. Everybody else around him was getting promotions, but he never got a promotion. And that's the joke. So Harry Kim never got a promotion.
Yeah.
Yo, where's that pip on my seat?
Poor Poor
Where's
guy.
that what?
Don't worry about it.
The ranks.
You'll get there, Jude. You'll get there, buddy. You'll get there. You'll get there.
So what about you, Brent? Anything that
I had three things.
All right,
I had
go
three
for
things,
it.
and I gotta bow to you guys because you guys have the stuff you guys pick out that I've heard in your other episodes. I missed all that, but I got three things. One, the holodeck room looked very similar to Voyager's holodeck room, like usually like the TNG holodeck room to the holo suites in DS9 to the holodeck room in Voyager. All were very different sets. This one looked very similar to Voyager's. So just noting that. The other one, the title of the episode, Time Amok, which for any of the old Trekkies who know, like that's a play on Amok Time, which is a very different episode. And I'm going as a dad, like that deals with more adult issues. This is a kid's show. What are they doing? And obviously you watch the show and obviously it's Time is just being all messed up. So, but you had that. But then the other one, literally I caught my first 47 in Prodigy.
Did you? 47. I missed it.
I caught the first 47. Do you know the thing about 47, Jude? So there's a joke in Star Trek that the writers where they hide the number 47 in random places. It's like an Easter egg that you keep finding, like Orko and He-Man. Like you just kind of find him as he pops up every once in a while. Okay, but it's when Drednok 2 turns around and he's using Chakotay's voice to erase Janeway. It's the command code. Like whatever number 47 ... So it's the first 47, the first one I caught. Yeah.
Wow.
I was very excited about that. Those are my favorites to find. It's like hidden Mickeys in Star Trek. You just
there you go. Yeah, I've been looking for 47s throughout, and that one just completely slipped past me. And I think it's probably because he was using Chakotay's voice, and that was like what keyed in my brain. So
I might have cheated because I had the subtitles on and I saw it written.
Oh, I do too.
Well.
Yep.
Yeah. So
I didn't even notice he was using Chakotay's voice.
Me neither.
I just want to know if that was Jeremy Simpson doing a fantastic Robert Beltran impression, or if they actually had Beltran like record that line and like maybe recorded the two guys and had them like sync over top of each other. I'm not sure how they did that, but
no idea. But that was cool. So I'll say this: some of my callbacks I pick up on my own, and some of them I catch as the couple days go by on Twitter. And I'll be like, oh yeah, that's a good one. I'll make sure to note that one. But Em will sit there and go, how do you know all this stuff? I'm like, 30 years, man.
Yeah, right. Put in time. Put in my time.
It does it.
Are you sure it's only 30 years? Because I think that you're a lot older than that.
Let's see. It is 37 years, if I can remember correctly. Like when I pretty sure I first started watching. So
wait, how old are you? Like I forget now. Wait, 37.
41.
How?
Same age.
Really?
Yep.
I didn't come to Star Trek till later in life though. So
my dad was a Trekkie, so there you go. I got it through him.
There you go.
Same.
Hopefully the same. I'm trying. I'm trying here.
So the one thing hey, you know what? You got to go with it. My dad was the one that got me into New England sports. So
there you go.
So the one other thing that I picked up on when they kind of went through the timeline and you saw like the big heads of everybody, reminded me of Star Trek 4 when they do the slingshot around the sun and everyone's head is like popping up through the clouds.
Okay. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
That popped into my brain. I was like, I've seen this before. And I had to sit there and think about it for a little while. And then when we rewatched last night, I was like, I know where it is. I got to say, just hats off. Like I really enjoyed
those transitions of animation when they were going through. I'm also a big Stargate fan, so I love the warp sequence through Stargate, and it was
Stargate
very similar to that to me, only better, frankly.
Oh, that's great.
Please specify how you would like to proceed, sir.
So Star Trek has always tried to teach the audience something about itself. And as we've seen, Prodigy is doing the same with the next generation. So our Starfleet Academy portion of the program, we ask each other and our guests, what is this episode trying to teach you as the audience member, whether you are older, like myself and Brent, or you are part of that younger generation? So, Em, I will let you go first on this one.
Okay, so I, like all of my other ones, I did not notice this. You know, you come up with my things for me because I'm terrible at that. But Dal said I'll only mess it up when Janeway needed him to build the warp
Matrix.
Yeah, sure. Warp
I saw you scanning your notes.
And you know, he was like, I'll only mess it up. I'm not gonna do good enough. I'm gonna fail. And you know, I feel like everybody gets into that mindset sometimes. You know, if you haven't gotten into that mindset already, you're perfect, and so I don't trust you.
I have 2 times.
And it's very difficult to get out of that headspace of, you know, I'm not good enough to do this. This is going to be too hard. I'm really bad at this. And it's a very big challenge to try and work through that. But, you know, it's good that Dal worked his way out of it, because, you know, this is something that, you know, if he didn't, you know, figure it out, then Gwen might not have been able to figure it out, and then Rock might not have been able to figure it out, and then they all would have died permanently. And, you know, hopefully when we get into this headspace, it's not a life-threatening thing of I'm going to die, all my friends are going to die, but it's still a very bad thing to get into, and it is very difficult to work out of.
Okay.
That's my speech.
Okay.
Did you like it?
Nice. All right. Jude, what did you learn from this episode?
Kind of what you said. You don't always have to be not positive when something is really hard. Like doing mixed fractions when you're only in 4th grade.
I'll tell you what, when you are 41, mixed fractions don't get any easier, bud. So much so that when Emilie was doing them, I had to pass them off to her mom because I couldn't figure it out. How about that? So you are in great company.
And nothing is impossible if you try hard.
You know, people say that nothing is impossible, but I sit here every day and I'm doing nothing. Oh.
What?
She's doing nothing. Nothing isn't impossible because she does nothing.
Oh.
And that is your deep thought for the day. All right, Brent, what did you pull from this episode?
Well, I mean, I think there's the thing that Janeway said like 15 times in the first like 15 seconds of this episode was work together. You've got to work together. Would you just work together? Please work together. And you're sitting there going, okay, something's going to happen that's going to force the crew to work together.
Somebody hold Fox. Somebody hold. Just throw the grain.
The chicken in the grain. By the way, I love that old analogy, and I nail it every time. I know exactly how to do it. It's not so that hard.
How is it? There you go. How do you do it?
We'll talk about it later.
They told me I had to solve it in 1st grade.
Yeah, it's not the hardest riddle in the world. You just got to think it through.
Yeah.
But it was that whole idea. But what I really loved, and I mean, it's got to be Rock's whole thing. Like you're capable of doing more than you think. And for me as a dad, for me as a parent, but I'm also a coach. I coach Jude and his little sister in the various sports and stuff. And it's not just them, but it's also all of their teammates. And just as a parent in life, there comes a point when you have to be a mentor to other people and you have to help them see more than what they can see for themselves. And it was actually like, I was looking at this through the viewpoint of Janeway, and I'll probably talk about this a little bit more later in another section on the show, but she was doing a great job at coaching these guys. And when they didn't think they could do it, she was pulling it out of them. And there's this moment when she looks at Dal, just to reference that, where she's like, you know, there's this other crew that had a really hard time, Apollo 13. And I'm like, oh, Tom Hanks movie, great. But, you know, she goes, but she looks at him and she says this line, it's such a good moment. It's a great way of how to coach. She goes, you know, but there is something you have that they had. And he's like, what, a coupler? And he's like, no, you have ingenuity. Now, what are you going to do about it? And he gets to she pushes him just to that right point and she calls it out of him. And same thing in Rock. Like she says it to Rock, you can do this. And Rock's going, I can't. And she's like, you can, you just have to try. Please just try. And and later on, she's like, is it going to work or is it not? And she's like, I don't care if it works or not. I'm just proud of you because you made it this far. And you're capable of doing more than you think. And as a coach, you've got to pull that out of kids. And as a kid, as just a human being, like it's okay to be scared. And Rock eventually conquered her fear. She did what she needed to do. She wasn't just a victim. She did what she needed to do. And she gave it a shot. And if it worked, awesome. And if it didn't, well, then she's not in any worse of a situation than she was before.
Right. Exactly.
Well, the thing is, though, when Janeway said, whatever happens, I'll be proud of you. It's like, yeah, if everybody dies and my programming is destroyed, just know in those last few seconds that you're alive, that I'm proud of you.
Hey,
and
that meant a lot to a 6-year-old, though, which is how old Rock is.
Yeah. The good news is Rock wouldn't have been around much longer to think about it that much either.
Nope.
Right.
She was lucky she got the long one. If Zero got the long one, they'd have it out in like 5 seconds.
Yeah, he would. He's the smart guy, that's for sure.
Yeah. That's why Zero couldn't have gotten the long one, because then this episode would have been over about 9 minutes in. So
yeah,
the writers figured that one out.
Yeah, I think we're all kind of hitting on the same thoughts here, because my thought process was Rock's journey as well in this episode. And, it seems like we've all kind of gone down the same path, but we've taken like different exits to get there. Because my thought process was trust in yourself, and that was one of Rock's problems, was she didn't have the confidence that she could do any of this stuff. And then once she took the time and thought about it, had that trust and that confidence, I mean, I'm sorry, even if it was 267 days or whatever it was,
plus
76,
that's a lot of stuff to learn and become an expert at in that
she learned
short
quantum
period.
Mechanics and all of that math in 276 days.
Yeah. So, I mean, hey,
math.
What comes to mind is that line from Back to the Future. If you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything. And, Rock was able to do that, and she saved her friends. And we get to now watch more Prodigy because she did that.
Yes.
You know what, though? If I had 276 million days, I don't think I could learn math.
I couldn't learn quantum mechanics, that's for sure.
And Emilie, think about that. Like Rock's probably in age range somewhere like right in the middle of you and Jude. And you guys are both homeschooled students, so imagine having to learn all that by yourself without anybody else around you.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no.
But you could do it. You can do it. I promise you can do it. I trust you.
It give me like a 267 million years.
Well, I move slow in that timeline. So
that's right. That's right. And the best part about it, you won't age.
Wait, she didn't?
No. to take a moment to talk about Fansets, the presenting sponsor of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network.
Long before we were doing a podcast sponsored by them, we were Fansets customers. The quality of the merchandise they put out is second to none. It's not just Star Trek that they offer, as they have something for all different types of fandoms, including Scooby-Doo, DC Comics, Batman 66, Harry Potter, and Rick and Morty.
And their latest releases were more microcrew pins. And with Prodigy in the Gamma Quadrant, we see that Lita and Wayun were two of the releases, as well as Master Thrall Galt from Gamesters of Triskelion. So if you are into the microcrews or any of Fansets' other 300 plus officially licensed Star Trek pins, go out to fansets.com and check them out, because they also have the Delta's Done Right collection, which are one of my favorites. Episode pins, another one of my favorites. But, let's be honest, just about anything that goes through their website is one of my favorites. So go to fansets.com, put a whole bunch of pins in your cart.
As a listener to the show, you can receive 10% off your next order from Fansets by using the code Discovering Trek at checkout. And remember that you receive free shipping in the U.S. on orders $30 or more.
Fansets. Our pins have character. And we thank Fansets for being the presenting sponsor of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network. So a favorite character from Star Trek lore has been Captain Christopher Pike. And this week we found out when we're going to get to see him in Strange New Worlds. But that's not what this podcast is about. It's about Prodigy. So we've named this section after him, the Medal of Honor round. So we ask our guests and we elect ourselves at least one of your favorite things from this episode, but up to 3. So Brent and Jude, will let you guys go first. What or who would you like to give awards to for this week? Jude's got a big smile on his face. So,
the lady that's doing the voice for the computer, because she said that she would be listening to the show.
Bonnie Gordon, yeah.
Bonnie Gordon.
And that's cool.
Yeah.
Murf.
Bonnie Gordon and Murf. I mean, how can you can't go wrong when you say Murf? I mean,
right.
And the other guy who did the show, I'm so sorry I forget your name.
Aaron?
No.
Or CJ?
CJ, maybe.
Yeah. CJ is the animation director at Nickelodeon, actually. I think he works more for Nickelodeon than for the Prodigy team, but obviously they're one and the same for the show.
Yep.
So yeah.
Awesome. Great choices. How about you, Brent?
I'm going to give mine collectively to the entire Janeway team, like as one deal. So I'm going to make my 3 in 1, but it's not going to go more than 3. But 1 to Janeway herself, and I already mentioned, just she was such a good coach, and she didn't jump in and do it for them. In this case, nope. She says she can't because she's a hologram, but I question that because I've seen Star Trek before. But whatever, it's cool. Maybe they put limitations on it. I don't know.
Maybe.
But I very much appreciate her. But Kate Mulgrew as well for the voice of Janeway was such fine acting in this one. This was the first episode that I didn't think of Janeway as a computer program, but I actually thought of her as Janeway. Like I felt Kate has really finally tapped into the old Catherine Janeway that she, is famous for, that she did. Like she really came into that Janeway again in this particular episode. But then also I criticized them earlier, so I'm giving them the medal. My hat's off to the animation team for Janeway, because I know people are just hard as snot to do. So yeah, they get my Medal of Honor for today.
Constructive criticism is not a bad thing. Some of these guys actually thrive on it. So
yeah, I couldn't do it better. For the record, I could not do it better. They're.
Em, what do you have? I'm gonna guess one of them has to do with animation.
Who would have guessed that? I can't believe it. Why would you make that assumption?
Or is it art?
Aren't they the same?
Don't assume. No.
She has told me it is not.
Yeah,
So I've listened to the show before. I knew. I'm just needling you there, Em. It's okay. I got you. I'm with you.
So the first thing that I wanted to mention was not the animation or the art. It was the scores again, because they're amazing and they make you feel something. They just hit you right here, and it's just beautiful. And the animation does go along with that because, I feel like a picture, people say, is worth 1,000 words, and music in my mind is also worth 1,000 words. Put that together, 2,000 words. And, that, like other people say, two heads are better than one. So you get
animation
art,
and music.
Yeah, you get animation, you get music. They make an amazing scene that makes you feel something with the music, and they make you see that emotion conveyed through the animation. And I think that is really cool how they work together on that. And also Dal's character growth through this, the way that he comes clean about the fact that they stole the ship and about the fact that they're not a real crew, and that he actually, looks like he feels bad about it. Just good job. He's kind of a good person now. He's getting there. So
He is. Nice.
Yep.
So I'm going to start mine with the writer of this episode, Nikhil S. Jayaram. Jayaram, is that what you said, Em?
Jayaram or Jayaram? I don't know.
I don't either.
Listen back.
But I went on and on a couple weeks ago about how great I thought Kobayashi was, and not taking anything away from that because it was a great episode. This may have taken its place as my favorite episode of the season so far. And believe it or not, it has nothing to do with the time travel, bended, broken timeline thing either. I think it goes a lot into what you were talking about, Brent, in how you see each of the characters pull something out of themselves, and it's through Janeway that they're able to do that. She coached them into being able to find the best parts of themselves when it came to engineering skills, which, you always chalk that up to Jankum, because he's the engineer. But we see all of them putting their smarts out there for everyone to see in this episode. Next, I've had her on my list a few times already. Riley Alzaraki as Rock Talk. We get the growth of the Rock Talk character here, but we get a growth in Riley's voice as well in this episode. One of the two of you talked about her being a scared character at one point, and you can hear that in her voice at the beginning of the episode. And then at the end, she's a confident, larger than life character in more ways than one. So, Riley, great job as always, but it really stood out in this episode. And then Brent, as you said, Kate Mulgrew as Janeway. And in my notes, I have written down something that you said: whatever happens, I'm proud of you. That there were two things that choked me up in this episode. There was that, and when she was with Dal at the protocore just before it exploded, and she put her hand out, and they held hands waiting for the explosion. Those two things, she was taking on the Janeway that we all knew as, I don't want to say mother figure because that's not right.
No.
Because, just because she was the first female captain, you don't necessarily have to equate her to a mother.
Mm-hmm.
But as a nurturer, who could be, that could be anybody. And man, did she nurture this crew in this episode. I thought it was awesome.
Mike, I think that's a good word, because I know I've heard Jerry Taylor, one of the creators of Voyager, talking about creating the character of Janeway, saying she really fought for the idea. Like, Janeway was not only going to be the first female captain, she was going to be a complete female. And that nurturing, that mothering, I think she steered away from the mothering idea as well.
Yeah.
But that nurturing idea would have to be a part of who Janeway is as a character, which we saw throughout the whole run of Voyager. And we definitely saw in this episode as well. And I think that lends a lot to what I was saying earlier of how this is the first time I've really felt Hologram Janeway was very much like the real Janeway that we've all come to know and love, not just a computer simulation of her.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, it's time to engage the Protostar drive. So what do we think is going to happen either next or further down the line in the series based off of what we've seen already? So early in the show, I got a request from Emilie to go first because she doesn't like people stealing her thoughts. So, Em, you get to go first. You better make it good.
All right. So this might be a little dark. I don't know which direction I'm going to take it entirely. So basically, at the end, Gwen asked Janeway how much time Rock spent alone, and she just said too much. That doesn't sound like a good thing.
Right.
It was hard enough with going through quarantine as a kid. It started out when I was like 9 or 10, and now I'm almost 13. It was very difficult for me, not being able to communicate with my friends and family, and it was hard for everybody in their own way. But at least I still got to see my parents and the people that I lived with. She didn't have anybody. She was all by herself. The entire ship was empty, and she would, I'm sure, on a daily basis, she would just take walks throughout the ship, and it would be just like a ghost town there. And it's just so sad. Yeah.
Do you think,
and sorry, go ahead.
Do you think that from, I think the third one where Janeway is getting off all the vines from the ship with the little cleaning things that Murf was chasing, do you think maybe she was like interacting with those? Or
that's actually interesting. I did not think that. No.
It's a cool idea.
She's now friends with all of them. They all have names. They all have personalities they've developed for her. She knows who they are.
Like a little pun-puns from Voltron.
Like the dots from Discovery.
Yeah.
Yep.
Dots.
And the thing that I realized, or I'm sure that everybody noticed, but it was also really sad when we saw that shot of her, going to sleep, and she would say goodbye or goodnight to the empty bunks. It was so sad. And I feel like she's going to, getting into, the bigger part of my theory, spending that time alone, especially for someone as young as her, can't be easy. And I feel like she's going to, need interaction with the crew. So I feel like it's going to be a difficult, process trying to get connected with them again at the same time, because, for them, it hadn't been that long, but for her, it could have been years just all by herself. So it could be hard for her to, get that connection back with them, because they might not understand the fact that she spent so much time alone that she might have feel like she lost that connection with them, and so she'll try to get that back, and they might not understand.
I kind of feel like though, Gwyn is gonna be that.
Yeah, definitely.
that friend that she needs.
Gwen is gonna be her rock.
But bum.
Dang.
I couldn't even
couldn't even finish the line without laughing. All right, is that all you got on that one, kid?
It is, yes.
Okay. All right, we'll let our guests go next on their predictions.
Okay, I think that Rock might be because she learned all this math and science and matrix stuff. She might be like an engineer with Jankum and Zero. And maybe how you saw that Zero had all of the tablets. Maybe she used those tablets to help her like learn stuff and get on track with the matrix thing. And
you know what I love is even though we've had upgrades in technology. In real life, where we can have thousands of books on an iPad or even on a phone. Right. Star Trek has still stayed with multiple tablets for multiple things.
Right. I was just saying the data memory on one of those pads must be minuscule.
Yeah.
and also maybe when she was saying goodnight to everybody, maybe when you saw how Jankum's hand can turn into like a hammer.
Oh, I forgot it could do that.
What?
Yeah.
We haven't seen that since like episode 1. I forgot that it could do that.
It did it in this episode.
Okay, I didn't notice it. I just forgot.
I didn't either. I missed that.
So, all right, what was your theory? Go ahead.
And so all of the like are the things that he looked. Or all the things that looked like his arm, maybe it could transform into something like my multi-tool. Like maybe she could have used those to help her build it easier.
Cool.
Oh, she used whatever thing that Jankum has on his arm. Gotcha.
And also, there's more of questions.
Okay.
If they all made the Protostar the same, does that mean that they had all of the pieces out, like where we saw Dow getting his pieces? So like, say if one of the pipes that he used or tubes is in the bathroom, for all the other ships, you would have to go to the bathroom to get that. So does that mean that it basically just like replicated the ship 6 or 5 times or however many times it did for everybody?
Well, she said that it's actually all the same ship. It's just different pieces were existing in different timelines. But what I think that means is where he went and got like the pipe out of the bathroom, that pipe's not in the bathroom anymore. So like somebody's going to go to the bathroom.
Right.
The pipe's not going to be there.
This takes us back. This takes us back to Murf Toots from a few episodes ago.
Right. Well, I mean, what was that part that Murf had in his mouth that he just vomited before Janeway?
Right.
Like, I'm getting out
yeah. So how about you?
After he threw up a bomb.
Right. Yes. Jude's still going on about bodily functions of Murf from a couple episodes ago.
Bodily functions.
Hey, we've still been laughing about it here. So how about you, Brent? What did you have for a prediction?
Well, I don't think that I have anything new out of this episode. I really like where M's going with it. It's an interesting thing. If this was an adult show following up the aftermath of what happened with Rock, and because honestly, you're getting into mental issues at that point, and what is she dealing with? This is a kid's show, so there's a piece where I'm like, okay, it's resolved now that everybody's back and they're going to just move on.
Yeah.
I feel like that might be where they go. But if it was a real show that they were really diving in, like that would be something that they need to go through. Because I was even thinking about the episode of Voyager where Seven I think it's called One, right? Where Seven was alone for like, it was only 30 days. And she about had a breakdown at the end of it. So, you know, I like where Emilie's theory is going, and I'm really curious as to what that would be. I just don't know that the show's going to go that way with it because it's a kid's show.
Yeah,
but I kind of hope they do.
I didn't take that into accountability, I guess. I only just realized that.
But it's a good theory, Emilie. Like it's a good, like, this is where we need to find out what happens, because that wouldn't just be, that's just not how that resolves. There's going to be fallout from that moving forward.
They need a counselor, Troy.
It's a good theory, but let's not traumatize the kids, though.
Exactly. Right. The kids got their lessons. But so anyway, but I don't have much new. I still have lingering things that I think the show's going to have to answer. Like, what is this order that the diviner is a part of? Like, we're going to have to find out about that. Drednok 2, first of all, Drednok 2, like, he was different. Like, he didn't have the spider legs. He just stood on two legs. So is there something different? Was this a different version? How did Janeway recognize him? He said this line real quick. Like, she's like, you deleted my files when you did this. And he goes, close, but not quite. What does that mean? Like, we're going to dive into the original crew, how they lost the Protostar, how it came into our diviner's possession, what his whole backstory is. He wasn't willing to he found a way to survive through the Protostar, but he wasn't willing to get rid of Gwen yet, because Drednok said, I'm not like, what Gwen said. She's like, you're going to get rid of me and then take the Protostar. He's like, no, I can't get rid of you because he doesn't want to.
The diviner's biggest mistake.
Yeah, he's like, you're his biggest mistake, but I can't get rid of you anyway. So I got to keep. So diviner obviously still wants Gwen around for whatever reason.
Gwen too is probably going to be made soon.
Maybe
it's because she's awesome.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Who wouldn't want her around?
Yeah, Gwen needs to be the counselor, because she could.
Yeah, there you go.
And I got to tell you, I know it's not the same actress. I know it's a completely different actress, but I cannot look at Gwen and think of Gwen without hearing Scarlett Johansson as a Black Widow. Like, because those two are so similar to me. And I'm sorry for anybody who I just put that in your head for. Like, that's who she reminds me of. Is she's just so amazing as a person.
Now I'm going to be thinking about that next time I watch it.
Yeah.
I was planning on watching that movie soon. I'm going to be seeing Gwen now.
Yeah.
So
she's going to have the opposite effect. She's going to see Gwen as Black Widow instead of.
Yeah, like I'll be watching it, and all of a sudden it'll just be Gwen diving off of buildings.
You know what? Gwen could be part of the Black Widow program. For another universe. So it would make sense. And like I said, I want to know about that arm malleable matter thing that she has, and this is more all that. But this is the lingering question I have right now. I've long had a question of, when is this set? I've heard it, about 5 years after Nemesis, right around the time of Lower Decks, couple years in and around there. So I'm cool with that. But that close to after Nemesis, okay, we get the Protostar, we go back to the Delta Quadrant. It's obviously still really far ways away. How are all these Alpha Quadrant people in the Delta Quadrant? Because the Klingons have been there, and the Ferengi are there, and they're being active. I know there was that one episode, but
who knows?
Whatever.
Maybe they're all in that quadrant, but
maybe
Starfleet.
Maybe they've figured out quantum slipstream technology. Finally,
I mean, Jenkins a Tellarite, and he's over there. Dal apparently comes from the Alpha Quadrant, maybe the Beta Quadrant, because he was taken there by Nandi. Right?
Nandi, yep.
Okay, so my theory
and Dal. I need to know more about Dal's head tail, because this has blown my mind. His head tail, like,
and that
does it express his emotions?
Does it? Does it move with, like, is it like a horse's tail? Like it move, like if he's really curious, it stands up. If he's happy, does it start to wag in the back of his head?
Yeah, just all of a sudden you just see.
Mm-hmm. If he gets scared, does it tuck underneath his?
Yeah.
Like, what's it do?
His ears go down too.
But that busted my theory of maybe Dallas clone. That's why nobody knows what species he is.
Maybe he is still cloned. It could be right.
Maybe that Ferengi is like super tech, like Sloth is.
Yeah.
Like stupid about the reality. Change socks. If you're not wearing green, like there's a thing where he goes, wear green socks, and if you're not wearing green socks, it's likely that the ship is gonna blow up.
Who are you talking about?
Sloth from Voltron.
I was thinking
shows on us in the middle of that conversation. I wasn't sure where it was going.
I just finished the series for the 4th time.
Sorry, I was stuck in the 80s. I was thinking Sloth from the Goonies.
That's what I thought too. I was like, hey, you guys.
Well, I am very close to what Jude was saying. So with all the things that Rock learned, I think she's going to be a science officer.
Yeah.
There you go.
Now, my prediction is way down on the scale compared to Emilie's, 4th level thinking. But what am I going to do? What am I going to do?
Can I talk about that just for a second, because it'll lead into that. The where she says early, like, I don't want to be the security officer. Please stop making me the security officer. I don't want to be that. I'm also a rather large person, and I understand that idea that when you're of a certain body type, you tend to get forced into roles that you don't love or that isn't you. And I love the fact that Rock was able to stand up for herself and go, I don't want to be that. Stop putting me there. That's not who I am.
Maybe,
also, I'm 9.
Maybe Jankum could be the security officer because he has the changing arm. Maybe he can change it into like
get him out of engineering and into security. There you go.
Yeah. Into Thor's hammer.
There you go.
It did turn into a hammer though.
Yeah.
The fact that the Diviner and Drednok can like hack into a computer in a whole different quadrant and then make another Drednok that can
do stuff
that has the same mind as regular Drednok.
Yeah.
Like that's just crazy. And
that's mind-blowing.
So is Drednok still with our Diviner back on his ship, or did like his whole file like get transferred over and he's not actually back over there?
But
anymore?
it couldn't have. He was on 2 legs, not the 4 spider legs.
Credits did call him Drednok 2, so
it did.
And if you noticed at the end of the episode, the skull, one of the eyes lit up.
Yep.
So we're gonna have to see what that's all about.
Ooh.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. The next couple of episodes, I think, have to dive into our Diviner and his whole story and what's causing him to chase after the Protostar. At least eventually, we've got to get there.
Yeah,
even if it's not the next couple of episodes, maybe in the next half of the season or something.
Technically speaking, unless we're considering Drednok to be like a life form and considering him to what was I going to say next?
You mean something that's sentient?
Yeah, but still, unless they're considering his outer shell an exoskeleton, it wasn't his skull, it was his head.
Excuse
me. Get it right.
Excuse me. All right. Well, we really appreciate the 2 of you coming on. It's been a blast. Where can the Murf Turf podcast be found for those who would like to listen?
Jude, do you know?
Murf's Turf Prodigy podcast at gmail.com.
You can email us at Murf's Turf podcast. I think it's Murf's Turf podcast at gmail.com. No, you can find us wherever you get your podcast. It's Murf's Turf, a Star Trek Prodigy podcast. I do think there's another Murf's Turf podcast out there, but it's like really old and kids don't listen to that one. But find us. Our logo is Murf. You'll see it. You can't miss it. And then we're out on Twitter. You can tweet at us at Murf's Turf Pod.
Don't forget that you can support Discovering Trek and the Trek Geeks Podcast Network by subscribing to bonus content on Patreon. Get access to unedited audio of all our podcasts and a lot of other perks. If you'd like to support this and the other member podcasts of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network, beam on over to patreon.com/TrekGeeks, where subscriptions start as low as $2 a month.
For more great Star Trek discussion, check out the aforementioned member podcasts on the network. In addition to Discovering Trek, there's Trek Geeks, Rewind, Politreks, 5-Year Mission, Deep Space Pride, Infinite Trek, The Divine Treasury, Sci-Fi Sisters, Drawn to Trek, Science Station 2, and With the First Link. You can find all these shows and where to listen on trekgeeks.com/listen or by downloading the Trek Geeks mobile app.
Trek Geeks Podcast Network. No one talks Trek like we do.
And what is coming up on the next episode of Prodigy, Em?
The crew forego their dreams of a Starfleet to return to Tars Lamora in a no-win scenario on Episode 9, A Moral Star, Part 1.
So Episode 8 stretched time and allowed Rok-Tahk to grow up before our eyes. How will she use her knowledge, and how is the first half of the season going to wrap up? Keep tuning in to Discovering Trek Prodigy as we have it all covered. Until then, never stop discovering.
Music for Discovering Trek is provided by 5-Year Mission. They're writing an original song for each episode of Star Trek. Hear more of their music at 5yearmission.net. Discovering Trek is a production of Coconut Media Works. Executive producers Bill Smith and Dan Davidson. For more great Star Trek discussion, discover the other shows of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network at trekgeeks.com or find us in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app.